Okay. Now, we're going to buzz through this. This is going to have to do with war, our next discussion, and this has got to go quickly. And I know there's a lot of stuff that could be discussed for days with this, but we talked about the holy war, or herem. Herem meaning devoted to the Lord, destroyed, burned up to the Lord, dedicated to the Lord. And this is what happens. The herem, the destruction, men, women, and children and animals at Jericho is the herem. Israelites were told to give the cities a peace, give them a chance of peace. They were to come to the city and say, you guys can submit to us, we won't destroy you. You have peace and stuff. Basically, the question is, a lot of people, and this is really a hard thing, how does God destroy these cities when men, women, and children, even the animals get killed? I'm not sure that I've got the answers for all this, but one of the principles is that God is judging, the land of Canaan is being judged. And for 400 years, God says he let the iniquity of the Amorites kept rising up, and God spared them for 400 years. And in that 400 years, then God sends Israel in to destroy them. So Israel becomes an instrument of God to destroy this culture because this culture was so wicked. And God says basically it's a judgment. In other words, Israel going in there and destroying this culture is a judgment on the Amorites because of their sin. So that's number one, that this isn't just Israel fighting a war with somebody. No, this is Israel doing God's judgment on them. The second point that comes up here is leaving them in the land. If Israel left the Canaanites in the land, the Canaanites would do what to the Israelites? They would get them to worship their pagan gods. That's actually what happened. Israel didn't destroy them all in the land, and some of those Canaanite peoples then taught them their idolatry, and Israel would later be judged. So God says, wipe them out because I don't want them contaminating you guys and teaching you idolatry. Israel did not do that, and so this is the problem. So this is the second kind of reason for total extermination, so that none of them would teach about their gods and stuff. By the way, ultimately it comes down to this. Who has the prerogative of life and death? Who has the prerogative of life and death? I walk out this thing and fall dead in the front of the library or whatever like that. Is it God's, what I'm saying is God has the right for life and for death, and you just got to admit it at a certain point. You just got to kind of back off. We humans don't have that call and stuff. This herem was rarely practiced, okay? It was practiced at Jericho, Ai, and Hatzor, maybe one or two other places and stuff, but it was rarely practiced in Israel. And so you got to be careful. Some people think, the herem was practiced. Israel heremed everything and destroyed everything. No, actually, it was only 3 places, really. And so you got to be careful about, magnifying this too much. Now, I want to hit next, war, what is it good for? And I want to talk about, did you ever think about war, and is war ever legitimate? Is war ever legitimate? What would you be willing to die for? And then another question, what would you be willing to kill for? Would you actually kill somebody? On what basis would you kill somebody? And how do you feel about war and things? And can academics decide these questions? Usually in academic settings, are they people that approve of war or disapprove and do peace? Peace. Academics, usually capitalists or socialists? Academics, okay? University where I went to, mostly socialists and stuff. So that's what you get in the academy. What I'm saying is that I think these things are very complicated. View of war, let me just hit these quickly. Jesus said what? What is the non-resistance position? The non-resistance position says basically this. You go into the army as a medic or chaplain. I won't pick up a gun to hurt somebody, but I will go in as a medic or chaplain to heal someone. Okay, so they go in as medics and chaplain. Based on the statement, Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Someone slaps you on one cheek, turn the other. Peter picked up the sword. And what happened? And lopped off that guy's ear. What did Jesus? Did Jesus rebuke Peter for taking off that guy's ear? And by the way, what did Jesus do to the guy's ear? He put it back on. Jesus said you're to do what? Hate your enemies or love your enemies? Very interesting statements there. Love your neighbor. If you love your neighbor as yourself, are you going to be killing your neighbor? So how do you work with this? So these are verses that support this kind of thing. Separation of the church and state. Jesus said, if my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. What is the implication of this statement? My kingdom, is it of this world? No, it's not. And so my servants won't fight. Okay? And did many of the early Christians die not defending themselves against the Roman Empire and that kind of stuff? So Jesus said these types of things. Christ dies as an example for others and doesn't defend himself. And he dies without defending himself. This is non-resistance position. Now, what I want to do is just show the other side, and then we'll call it a day. Dualism. Can we say we're of God's kingdom and we're not of this kingdom of this world? Do most of us live in this world? Do we eat? Do we do other things in this world? And so, in short, do we have dual citizenship? Do I have responsibilities to America? Do I have responsibilities to America as well as being a Christian? Am I also an American? What are my responsibilities as an American? Here's another passage. Jesus said, I did not come to bring peace, I came to bring the sword. Jesus said, Luke chapter 22, I did not come to bring peace, but the sword. What did Jesus mean there? Did Jesus mean we should pick up the sword and go after it? No. This passage has been taken out of context. Jesus said, I did not come to bring peace, but the sword. In other words, is the sword going to be used on you disciples? The sword is not that the disciples were to use the sword, but that the sword would be used on them. Did most of the disciples die a violent death? And so Jesus, when he says that, and then, what if you saw somebody being raped? Would you actually physically hurt the person that was raping the person? Now, you're doing violence to that person, but the person is doing violence to that. Would you just stand by and say, sir, I'm a conscientious objector and I don't want to hurt you and stuff. I will call the police on you and stuff, so you better do us fast and stuff. Or would you go pounce on the guy and knock his lights out? Okay? So what I'm saying is, when one country is doing something to another, what would happen if America didn't get involved with the Hitler thing? It's possible Hitler would be ruling all of Europe now, and more. Okay, so what type of war this non-resistance has to face some of these questions and things. We didn't talk about pacifists. We didn't talk about just war. And she's out of here, so we better get out of here. Oh, okay, all right, let's go.